He rescued a crying child from the ruins. Her mother arrived with an army. The moon cast silver light across the ruins as Dr. Julian Ashford descended into the forbidden chamber. His climbing harness creaked, boots finding purchase on stone that had stood for millennia. The Velarians had mastered technologies humanity still struggled to comprehend. His headlamp swept across inscriptions. He pulled out his camera, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. The university had denied his permits, called this trespassing. Some knowledge was worth the risk. A sound cut through his focus, crying. Julian froze. The ruins had been abandoned for centuries, yet the sound came again, a child's sob. He moved toward it. A wall section had collapsed inward. Beneath the largest stone, small pale green fingers scrabbled at debris. A child lay pinned beneath a lintel, her leg trapped at a wrong angle. Wide eyes found his feline pupils blown with fear. Her ears lay flat, trembling. The ground shuddered. Julian wedged his climbing axe beneath the lintel and threw his weight against it. The stone shifted a fraction. He reset his grip, muscles screaming. The lintel rose another inch. The child pulled at her leg, crying out. The ceiling groaned. "Pull," he commanded. She understood. With a feline shriek, she dragged herself free. Julian released the lintel and grabbed her, rolling away as the ceiling collapsed. Stone crashed where they'd been. He curled around her body, feeling impacts against his back. Then silence. The child clung to his shirt, claws pricking through fabric. Her leg twisted wrong, blood matting the fur. He snapped a flex splint around it and injected painkiller. She hissed, but didn't pull away. Only when he wrapped the injury did he notice her clothing, fabric shimmering with embedded circuitry. Then he saw the marking on her neck, intricate patterns behind her ear. The royal crest of the Velarian Empire. The child said something in her language. Julian pulled out his translator. "Mother comes." "Your mother is coming?" She nodded, pointing upward. Julian activated his scanner, 6 signatures dropping out of FTL, 8, 12. A fleet materialized in orbit, capital ships. The child smiled, showing small fangs. "Mother." Engines descended fast. Julian gathered her into his arms. They moved toward the entrance as engine sounds grew deafening. Soldiers dropped through the opening with military precision. Weapons tracked him. More soldiers rappelled down. Then she descended. The Empress dropped 30 feet and landed in a crouch. When she rose, Julian's breath caught. She was tall, nearly matching his height. Elaborate armor hugged curves, speaking of femininity and deadly strength. Long, deep green hair swept past her shoulders. Feline eyes fixed on him with promised violence. Her ears lay flat, her tail lashed. Then she moved and cold metal pressed against his throat. "Give her to me," the Empress said in perfect English. Julian swallowed against the blade. "She's hurt, compound fracture. I stabilized it." The blade pressed harder. "You dare speak to me of her injuries." "Mother!" The child squirmed in Julian's arms, reaching. She gestured at the collapsed section, at Julian, at her splinted leg. She pulled at his torn shirt, showing his bruised back. Something shifted in the Empress's expression. She spoke to her daughter in private tones. The child responded enthusiastically. Those feline eyes returned to Julian. "My daughter claims you saved her life, that you shielded her with your own body." "Yes. You trespass on sacred ground, violate treaties." Each word carried absolute authority. "Give me one reason I should not execute you." The child interrupted, gripping Julian's shirt. The Empress's jaw tightened. "She has grown attached. My daughter believes you acted with honor." Julian met her gaze. "When I heard her crying, nothing else mattered." "How noble, a human archaeologist stealing from graves." "I'm not stealing. I'm trying to understand. I've spent 10 years studying Velarian culture because it's the most sophisticated in the known galaxy." The Empress studied him. Her tail stopped lashing. "You speak our language." "Poorly, but I've read everything I could access, the Treaty of Keeley's, the Scrolls of Founding." "And yet you still trespassed." "Yes, because official channels would never grant me access." Her lips pulled back, showing fangs. "You value knowledge over your life." "I value understanding over comfort." They stared at each other. Finally, she withdrew her blade. "Commander Talor." A male soldier stepped forward. "My Empress, take my daughter to the medical bay." Julian transferred the child to Talor's arms. She protested until her mother spoke sharply. The Empress circled Julian slowly. "My daughter's life is worth more than every human who has ever lived," she said quietly. "You violated sacred ground, yet earned her trust." She stopped in front of him. "I could execute you, but my daughter would weep, and I have grown weary of her tears." Her hand moved to her weapon. "Alternatively, you claim expertise. Dr. Julian Ashford, I will test this claim." Julian blinked. "You know my name. I know everything about you. Your doctorate, your papers on Velarian architecture, your censure for reckless disregard of protocols." She stepped closer. "You will accompany me aboard my flagship. You will work under supervision. And you will solve a mystery that has plagued my scholars for 2 generations. And if I refuse, you die here now. How long do I have?" 1 week. What's the mystery?" Her tail swished. "You will see. Bring him." Soldiers moved forward. As they guided him toward gravlifts, the Empress ascended first. As they emerged onto the surface, he saw the ships. The flagship dominated the sky. They loaded him onto a shuttle. Through the viewport, Julian watched the ruins recede. The flagship's hangar could have swallowed his university. Eyes followed him, feline eyes in faces ranging from curious to hostile. The Empress led him through corridors. They stopped at a door marked with warning glyphs. She placed her palm against a scanner. "Your quarters, you will have access to our archives. Attempting to leave without escort will result in termination." The room held a sleeping platform, workstation, viewport. "Tomorrow I will show you the mystery. My physicians confirm my daughter will recover fully. The splint you applied prevented permanent damage." She turned to face him. "You may have earned 1 week of life, Dr. Ashford. Do not waste it." She left, the door sealed. Julian stood looking out at stars, wondering what mystery could be worth threatening a human with death to solve. Julian woke to the door opening. The Empress stood in the threshold, armor replaced by flowing garments that somehow made her more formidable. Her tail swished once. "Come, we begin." He followed her through corridors that curved like living things. Crew members pressed themselves against walls as she passed, ears flattening in deference. No one met her eyes. They entered a chamber that took his breath away. Archives stretched in every direction, data crystals pulsing with stored information. Holographic displays floated in clusters, showing star charts and architectural diagrams. "This is restricted knowledge," the Empress said. "What you see here could reshape human understanding of the galaxy. Transmit any of it, and you die." Julian nodded, already moving toward the nearest display. It showed a ruin similar to the one where he'd found Mira, but the architectural elements were subtly different. "How many sites like this exist?" 47 that we've cataloged, all abandoned, all ancient, all sacred to my people." She moved to a central console and activated it. A 3-dimensional map materialized, showing the Velarian territories studded with markers. "For 2 generations, my scholars have studied these sites. They contain warnings, but the language is archaic. Even our best linguists struggle with the dialect." Julian studied the map, his mind racing. The distribution pattern was too precise to be random. "They're not just religious sites, they're a network." "Explain." "The positioning. If I'm reading this correctly, they form a geometric pattern across your space. That's natural settlement expansion. Someone placed them deliberately." The Empress's ears swiveled toward him, interest sharpening her features. "Continue. May I access the linguistic database?" She gestured permission. Julian pulled up inscription samples from multiple sites, layering them holographically. His fingers moved through the air, isolating common phrases. "Here, this glyph appears in every site. It's not a word, it's a warning marker. And this sequence." He traced a pattern. "It's repeating, like a countdown or a calibration sequence." "A countdown to what?" "I don't know yet, but the grammar structure suggests imminent threat, not historical, future tense." The Empress stepped closer, studying the patterns he'd isolated. Her presence radiated heat, and Julian caught a scent like summer rain and something wilder. No human has ever been granted access to this information, she said quietly. My advisors warned me you would steal our secrets. Your secrets are safe. I'm interested in understanding, not exploitation. She turned to face him, close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her eyes. Why? Why what? Why dedicate your life to studying a species that has made clear you are unwelcome? Humans are banned from Velarian space. Your colleagues mock you for this obsession, yet you persist. Julian met her gaze. Because the first time I saw Velarian architecture, I realized we'd been looking at the galaxy all wrong. Humans think we're special because we achieved spaceflight, but your people were building cities that integrated quantum mechanics into structural design while we were still fighting with bronze weapons. That kind of achievement deserves respect, not ignorance. Something in her expression softened fractionally. My daughter has not stopped speaking of you. She asks when you will visit. I'd like that if you permit it. You saved her life. I cannot refuse her this request. The Empress turned back to the display. Tomorrow you may visit her. Tonight we work. They worked through the night cycle. Julian cross-referenced inscriptions, while the Empress provided cultural context he couldn't access through pure linguistics. She explained religious practices, historical events that shaped language evolution, nuances no database could capture. Hours blurred together. At some point, food appeared, brought by servants who wouldn't look at Julian. The Empress ate with casual grace, never fully turning her attention from the work. Here, Julian said finally, this passage, it's describing a defense system. The Empress leaned over his shoulder, reading the ancient text he'd highlighted. The guardians sleep beneath stone and star. When the silence breaks, they wake. Julian pulled up more fragments, assembling them into sequence. It's not metaphorical. Your ancestors built automated defense systems, powerful ones. They're dormant, but something is designed to wake them. Why would our ancestors create such things? Protection. Against what? I can't say. But the warning is clear. If these systems activate without proper authorization codes, they'll attack indiscriminately. The Empress straightened, tail lashing. You're saying my sacred ruins contain weapons? I'm saying they contain warnings about weapons. The actual systems could be anywhere. Underground, in orbit, hidden in asteroid fields. She paced, processing this. Julian watched her move, noting how stress made her more feline, all controlled power and coiled readiness. This threatens everything, she said. If these systems activate near human space, your governments will blame us. They already seek excuses for conflict. Then we need to understand how to prevent activation, or shut them down if they wake. She stopped pacing, fixing him with an intense stare. We? Julian held her gaze. This threatens both our peoples. Understanding it requires both Velarian cultural knowledge and human analytical approaches. We're stronger working together. You speak of cooperation between species that barely tolerate each other's existence. I speak of survival. The Empress studied him for a long moment, then she moved to the console and activated a new file. Classified markers flashed across it. 3 days ago, one of our border stations detected unusual energy signatures. We dismissed it as equipment malfunction. But if you're correct... Julian examined the data, his stomach dropped. That's not a malfunction, that's a startup sequence. How long until full activation? Based on these readings, days, maybe a week. The Empress's claws extended slightly, then retracted. Then you have less time than I promised. Find a solution, Dr. Ashford, or we will all pay the price. She left him there, surrounded by ancient warnings and modern fears, the weight of 2 civilizations pressing down on his shoulders. Julian spent 3 days buried in archives, sleeping in fragments when exhaustion forced it. The Empress appeared at irregular intervals, sometimes staying for hours. They fell into a rhythm, his questions, her cultural insights, both chasing answers through ancient text. On the 4th morning, she arrived with Mira. The child's leg was encased in a regenerative brace. She launched herself at Julian, wrapping her arms around his neck, purring. Careful, the Empress said, though something in her voice suggested she didn't disapprove. Mira chattered at Julian. The Empress translated. She wants to know if you've solved the puzzle yet. She has faith in your abilities. Julian smiled at Mira. Working on it, your mother is helping. Mira said something that made the Empress's ears flatten. She responded sharply. Mira giggled. What did she say? She said her mother spends more time with you than with her advisors. She finds this suspicious. The Empress's gaze held a challenge, but also something else. Awareness. The same awareness Julian felt when they worked shoulder to shoulder, when her hand brushed his, when he caught her watching him. Your daughter is observant, Julian said carefully. A trait she inherited. The Empress took Mira from his arms. Come, you need to eat properly, and my daughter wishes you to see her chambers. They walked through sections Julian hadn't accessed. Crew members still avoided him, but hostility had muted to wary curiosity. Mira's chambers spoke of luxury, soft surfaces, holographic entertainment, educational toys. She showed Julian everything with pride. They ate together. The meal was surprisingly informal. Mira asked endless questions through her mother's translation, and the Empress allowed it, her usual severity softening. Julian found himself relaxing, watching them together. The way the Empress's tail curved protectively when Mira leaned against her, how her ears swiveled to track her daughter's movements, the gentle rumble that escaped when Mira said something amusing. You're different with her, Julian said when Mira had been called away by her tutor. They stood alone in the observation corridor. The Empress's expression shifted, guards raising. She is my heart. Of course I am different. With everyone else, you're the Empress. Absolute authority, no weakness. But with her, you let yourself be just a mother. The Empress turned to the viewport. Being Empress means I cannot afford vulnerability. My people need strength. But Mira needs to know her mother is more than a crown and a blade. She's lucky to have you. I nearly lost her. The Empress's voice dropped. When I received word she was missing, that there had been a collapse, I have never known such terror. I brought my entire fleet prepared to burn the world if needed. But you didn't. Because of you. She turned to face him, intensity in her gaze making his breath catch. You, who should have run, stayed to save a child you didn't know. You protected her with your own body. Julian stepped closer. I couldn't do anything else. Most would have. Most humans view us as animals, yet you risked everything. You're not animals, you're people. Mira was a child in pain, nothing else mattered. They stood close enough that Julian could feel the heat from her body. Her pupils had dilated, breathing faster. You complicate everything, the Empress said quietly. How? Because I should hate you. You represent everything that threatens my people, but you also represent something I did not know existed in your species. What? Honor, genuine respect, the ability to see us as equals. Julian reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed his fingers along her jaw. Her skin felt like warm silk, and a shiver ran through her. I see you, he said, not just the Empress, you. Her hand came up to grip his wrist, claws pricking his skin. For a moment, he thought she might push him away. Instead, she pulled him closer. This is dangerous, she said, but her tail had curved around his leg. I know. My court would riot. Your people would call you a traitor. I know. And still? She closed the distance. The kiss started controlled, testing, questioning. Then her hand slid to the back of his neck, claws scraping his scalp, and control shattered. Julian pulled her against him, feeling the strength in her body. Her mouth tasted like spices from their meal, and the sound she made was half purr, half growl. His hands found the curve of her waist, mapping territory he'd only imagined. She pushed him back against the wall. Her claws traced down his chest, catching on fabric, and he gasped. She pulled back enough to look at him, pupils blown wide, breathing hard. My quarters, she said, now. They barely made it. The corridor was empty, but Julian felt exposed. Anyone who saw them would understand. Her quarters were austere, functional, designed for duty over comfort. But when she pulled him onto the sleeping platform, nothing else mattered. They moved together with urgency, born of denial, finally breaking. Her claws left marks on his shoulders. He traced the patterns in her skin, learning what made her arch and purr. She was demanding and generous in equal measure. Afterward, they lay tangled together, both breathing hard. Her tail remained curved around his leg, one hand resting over his heart. "This changes nothing," she said, but there was no conviction in it. "It changes everything." She lifted her head to look at him, vulnerability showing clear. "I don't know how to do this. Balance what I feel with what I am." Julian brushed his fingers through her hair. "We figure it out together. My advisors will demand your execution if they suspect. High Chancellor Davin already questions why you live. Then we don't give them reason to suspect." She laughed, low and rough. "You underestimate how observant they are." She trailed off, listening. Julian heard it too, alarms distant but growing closer. The Empress was off the platform instantly, pulling on her garments with practiced speed. Julian followed suit. "What is it?" "Emergency alert. Battle stations." She activated a comm panel. "Report." Commander Taller's voice came through. "My Empress, the border station, the energy signature, it just spiked. The systems are fully active." Julian's blood ran cold. "How many?" "Multiple activation sites, 6 so far, more coming online." The Empress's expression went cold, every trace of the woman who'd been in his arms vanishing behind absolute authority. "Assemble the War Council. Full tactical assessment in 10 minutes. She closed the channel and turned to Julian. "Can they be stopped?" "I don't know. I need access to the activation signatures, comparison data from the ruins." "You'll have it, but understand. If these systems attack human territory, my people will demand blood, and I may not be able to protect you." "Then we make sure they don't attack human territory." She held his gaze a moment longer, then left at a run. Julian followed, his mind racing through possibilities. The ancient defense systems were waking, and he had no idea how to stop them. The War Council chamber thrummed with tension. Velarian officers surrounded a holographic display showing red markers spreading across the sector like a virus. Each marker represented an activated defense system. Julian stood beside the Empress, acutely aware of hostile stares. High Chancellor Davin stood across the table, pale eyes fixed on Julian with undisguised contempt. 11 sites active, Commander Taller reported. Energy signatures match ancient Velarian weapon systems. Output levels suggest planetary-scale destructive capability. "Have they engaged targets?" the Empress asked. "Not yet, but their targeting arrays are scanning." Davin's tail lashed. "This human awakened them. His presence in the sacred ruins triggered the activation. I propose immediate execution." Several officers murmured agreement. The Empress's ears flattened. "Dr. Ashford was in one ruin. The systems are activating across 47 sites simultaneously. His presence cannot explain that." "Then his species triggered them remotely. These defenses recognize human expansion as a threat." Julian stepped forward. "That's not how it works. The systems are following a programmed activation sequence. Something triggered the countdown." "Silence," Davin snapped. "You have no authority here." The Empress's hand moved to her blade. "He has my authority. Show respect or leave my council." Davin's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head. Julian pulled up data from the archives. The inscriptions mention a silence that must not be broken. It's literal. These systems were designed to activate if something stopped transmitting. A failsafe. "What was transmitting?" Commander Taller asked. "I don't know, but it stopped 3 days ago." The Empress studied the display. "Can the systems be deactivated?" The inscriptions mention authorization codes, 2-part verification, Velarian biometric signature, and what I believe is a human genetic marker. The room erupted. Officers shouted over each other. Davin's voice cut through. "This proves it. The humans planted these weapons in our territory millennia ago." "That's not possible," Julian said. "These systems predate human spaceflight by centuries." "Then your species discovered our worlds long before official records claim this is an invasion." The Empress raised her hand. Silence fell immediately. "Enough. Dr. Ashford, why would ancient systems require human authorization?" "Because whoever built them wanted cooperation between our species. They created a safeguard preventing either side from weaponizing the systems alone." Or they created a trap, Davin said coldly. These weapons will target Velarian worlds unless we provide both codes. An alarm blared. The holographic display flashed red. One of the systems just fired, Taylor said, voice tight. They watched the projection arc across space. It struck a small moon in an uninhabited system. The moon ceased to exist. Silence. How long until they target inhabited worlds? The Empress asked. Maybe less. Davin moved around the table toward Julian. My Empress, I have served your family for 3 decades. Execute him now and offer his death as appeasement. It may satisfy their programming. And if it doesn't, then we lose nothing but a trespasser. The Empress looked at Julian, and he saw the calculation in her eyes, saw her weighing her people's safety against his life. There's another option, Julian said quickly. Let me access the central control site, the original ruin where I found Mira. If I'm right about the dual authorization, I can interface with the systems directly. You could also trigger full activation, Davin said. Doom us all. I could, but I won't. Your species has proven itself untrustworthy time and again. The Empress turned to Davin. You question my judgment? I question your objectivity. This human has clearly influenced you. The entire fleet whispers about how much time you spend with him. Some say... Her blade was at his throat before he finished. Some say what, Chancellor? Davin held perfectly still. Forgive me, my Empress, I speak only from concern. She held the blade steady a moment longer, then withdrew it. Commander Talar, prepare a strike team. We depart for the ruin within the hour. My Empress, I must protest. Your protest is noted and dismissed. Dr. Ashford has provided more intelligence in 5 days than your scholars have in 2 generations. We will attempt his solution. She turned to Julian. If you are wrong, if this is human deception, you will die first, and I will personally deliver your corpse to your university. Do you understand? Julian met her gaze, seeing the Empress rather than the woman who'd been in his arms hours ago. I understand. Then we moved, dismissed. The officers filed out, Davin casting one last venomous look at Julian. When they were alone, the Empress's shoulders sagged fractionally. Did I just doom my people by trusting you? Julian wanted to touch her, but cameras watched the council chamber. No, I realized something. The systems require both our species to shut down because whoever built them knew we'd need to work together to survive. This was never about weapons. It's about forcing cooperation. A brutal method of encouragement. Effective, though. She almost smiled. Davin suspects about us. He's gathering support. If the mission fails, he'll have justification to stage a coup. Then we don't fail. Simple as that? Has to be. She moved to the viewport, looking out at her fleet. I never wanted to choose between my people and... She trailed off. And you, I never wanted to choose between my people and you. Julian crossed to her then. He placed his hand over hers on the railing. You won't have to. We'll solve this. She turned her hand to grip his. Such confidence. Is it human arrogance or genuine belief? Both, probably. This time she did smile, brief but genuine, then she pulled away, the Empress returning. 1 hour, be ready. She left, and Julian stood alone in the empty chamber, looking at the holographic display where red markers continued spreading. 11 active sites, 47 total, each capable of destroying planets. He'd better be right, because if he was wrong, he wouldn't just die. He'd take 2 civilizations with him. The hour passed quickly. Julian met the strike team in the hangar, 10 elite soldiers, Commander Talar, and the Empress in full combat armor. She looked magnificent and terrifying. They loaded onto a fast assault shuttle. No one spoke during the flight. The soldiers checked weapons with mechanical efficiency. Talar reviewed tactical data. The Empress sat motionless, eyes closed. Julian tried not to think about the odds, tried not to remember the feel of her claws on his skin or the way she'd said his name. The ruin came into view, and everything else fell away. Time to see if his theory would save them or destroy them all. The shuttle dropped them at the ruin's entrance. Julian led them down through passages he'd memorized. The soldiers moved with practiced silence. They reached the central chamber where he'd found Mira. The collapsed section had been cleared, revealing a doorway that hadn't been visible before. "There," Julian said. The Empress signaled her team forward. Commander Taller returned. "Clear, but the architecture ahead is more advanced." They descended together. The passage opened into a vast chamber. Technology beyond anything Julian had seen covered the walls, panels pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. At the center stood a control platform with two distinct terminals. One bore Velarian glyphs, the other showed ancient human proto-languages. "How is this possible?" the Empress said. "These ruins predate human civilization." "Maybe whoever built this knew we'd both evolve." He moved to the platform. The Velarian side showed a handprint scanner. The human side displayed a genetic sequencer. "It needs both of us simultaneously." The Empress joined him. "And if you're wrong, then we die together." She touched his face despite the soldiers watching. "I should have executed you that first day." "But you didn't." "No, because my daughter saw something in you I had forgotten humans could possess." Her claws traced his jaw gently. "I am glad she was right." "My Empress," Commander Taller said urgently, "multiple systems are targeting populated worlds. We're out of time." The Empress moved to the Velarian terminal. Julian took position at the human side. "On your signal." Julian placed his hand on the sequencer. It pricked his palm. The Empress pressed her hand to the scanner. The chamber exploded with light. A holographic figure materialized, neither human nor Velarian, but something else entirely. "Protocol satisfied, dual authorization confirmed. Welcome, inheritors." "Inheritors of what?" the Empress demanded. "This sector. We seeded your worlds, guided your evolution. You were meant to find each other, to build together. We created insurance, a threat requiring cooperation to defeat." "You created these weapons to force us to work together?" Julian said. "We created a test, one you are passing. The systems will now enter dormant phase, awaiting your joint command." "What if we refuse?" the Empress asked. "Then the systems activate permanently. You have one planetary rotation to establish formal cooperation protocols. Fail, and the systems will sterilize both territories." The hologram vanished. The Empress and Julian stared at each other. "Cooperate or die," she said. "It's working, though." She moved closer, lowering her voice. "My court will fight this. Davin will use it." Commander Teller's comm crackled. "Commander, Chancellor Davin has seized the flagship. He's declaring the Empress compromised and unfit to rule." The Empress's expression went cold. "How many support him?" "Unknown. He controls the bridge and main systems." "A coup." She turned to Julian. "Can you operate these systems? Actually control them?" "I think so. Because I'm going to give Davin a demonstration of power." She moved back to the Velarian terminal, Julian to the human side. Together, they interfaced with the ancient technology. Information flooded Julian's mind, targeting protocols, system status, command hierarchies. "There," the Empress said. "Davin's ship. Can we isolate it?" "Without destroying it?" "I want him contained, not dead." Julian worked through the systems. "Ready, disable weapons and engines?" "And communications." They activated the sequence together. On the holographic display, they watched the flagship's systems shut down one by one. Precise surgical control. The Empress opened a channel. "Chancellor Davin, your coup has failed. The ancient systems respond to joint human-Velarian command. Stand down or face the consequences." Silence stretched. Then Davin's voice came through, tight with rage. "This is treason. I've saved our people from extinction. Accept the new reality, or spend the rest of your life in a cell." More silence than Taller's voice. "My Empress loyalist forces have retaken the bridge. Davin is in custody." The Empress's shoulders relaxed fractionally. "Secure him." She closed the channel and turned to Julian. "That's twice now you've saved my people. First my daughter, now my empire." "We saved it together." She stepped close enough that the soldiers couldn't hear. "What happens now? My court will demand I maintain distance from you." Then we change their expectations. Julian took her hand. "You're the Empress. You have absolute authority. Use it." She laughed, low and genuine. You want me to claim you publicly? Make you my consort? I want you to choose what you want, not what's expected, what you actually want. Her eyes searched his face. I want you, despite every logical reason I shouldn't. I want you. Then take me. She kissed him there in the ancient chamber, with soldiers watching and the fate of 2 civilizations hanging in the balance. When she pulled back, determination replaced conflict. Commander Taylor, my Empress, prepare an official announcement. I'm claiming Dr. Julian Ashford as my consort and opening formal diplomatic negotiations with humanity. Anyone who objects can face me personally. Taylor's ears swiveled in surprise, but he inclined his head. As you command. The Empress turned back to Julian. You understand what this means? You'll be controversial. Half my people will hate you. I understand. And you're still willing? I didn't risk my life in a collapsing ruin because it was safe. I did it because it was right. This is right. She smiled, showing fangs, and pulled him close. Then let's rewrite history together. They emerged from the ruins to find the sky filled with ships, Velarian and human both. News had spread. Julian stood beside her as she addressed both fleets, claiming him before witnesses from 2 worlds. He felt the weight of it, the responsibility, the danger. But he also felt her hand in his, claws gentle, felt the rightness of standing beside someone who valued courage above prejudice. Mira ran to them when they boarded the flagship, wrapping herself around Julian's legs and purring. The Empress lifted her daughter, holding them both close. Are you staying? Mira asked Julian in careful English. Yes, he said, I'm staying. The child beamed, and the Empress's tail curved around them both, her family, however, unconventional. They had forced 2 civilizations to face each other honestly, had proven cooperation was possible, had chosen each other despite every reason they shouldn't. The future would be complicated, opposition, danger, endless political battles. But standing there with her beside him and her daughter between them, Julian knew he'd made the right choice. Some knowledge was worth any risk, some connections transcended species, and some rescues saved more than one life. They saved the possibility of a different future. Together they would build it,